The universe is like a big clock. A timer was set in 1397 in Central Texas for 626 years from then. That would be the next time it would see a total solar eclipse. And the next one to hit Central Texas in 319 years in the year 2343. So I wanted to commemorate this with a watercolor painting. Now I had thoughts and ideas and sketches for weeks, and I love astronomy. I did science fair projects on the solar system when I was a kid. I even used to have a license plate with syzygy on it. Now that's not a real common word, but it is the position that the sun, the moon, and the earth will be in during an eclipse. And of course you gotta have a playlist. So I had Moonshadow by Cat Stevens, Total Eclipse of the Heart, of course. Maybe Timbuk 3, The Future's So Bright, I Gotta Wear Shades. Timbuk 3 has a Central Texas connection too, so that was perfect. So I started early on this one because I knew it was coming, and I was excited about it. So I was working on sketches weeks and weeks ago, but plans don't always work out the way you think they will, and I ran into a number of things that just made me think, am I going to finish this on time? In time for the solar eclipse? In fact, in addition to all the things that were already going wrong with things, I got set back because I got called for jury duty, and I needed to be out of the house and downtown in a juror box for 3 days. That set me back more than I thought it would. Sitting in a chair for 8 hours, I don't know how people do it. I was just exhausted by the time I was done. But in the evenings, I would come back and do some work on the layout of this drawing. I had to make some changes. Things weren't quite lining up right, but overall, I ended up liking the sketch that I was going to be working from. My idea was to have kind of a line and wash sort of thing, so I got out my inks and my pen and was doing kind of an underdrawing that I would paint over, and this process went pretty smoothly. I was more or less happy with the layout of things, and I thought, well, this is looking pretty good. I think this is going to work out, and I'm definitely going to be on time. Until... Oh. I don't know what was going on with my pen. I had it angled too low, I think, and I started making all sorts of messes. There I go again. And I was getting so frustrated because, you'd think I'd never used an ink pen before. I don't know what was going on, but look at this. I mean, all over, just a mess. And I'm thinking, I've made it this far, and now I can't seem to finish. Oh, I was so frustrated because I knew I was going to have to do something different. I had the option, of course, of just starting over with a new drawing and going from there, but that just seemed like I just didn't want to do that. So I thought, okay, well, instead of a watercolor, at least a complete watercolor, I'm going to use gouache. And thankfully I did some experiments a few weeks back on gouache and watercolor, and I knew that I'd be able to use these together anyway. And I was using the ability of gouache to cover over things because it's pretty opaque. And so a lot of those mishaps that I had with the ink pen, I might be able to cover over that with some gouache paint. I have my high school art teacher to thank for this sort of attitude of trying to, I guess, fix something that goes wrong as opposed to just starting over. she always insisted that we try to find out a solution, try to use the mistakes, and maybe they'll work to your advantage. It doesn't always work that way, but I think it's a good attitude to have, because you don't know what's going to happen in art a lot of times. And being able to find solutions that you're not expecting a lot of times can open up doors you didn't even know were there. And sometimes that solution ends up being even better than what you had in mind originally. Now, I did say sometimes, not always, and I still didn't know where this one was going to go. I was using gouache to cover over a lot of my mistakes, and maybe that's cheating to some people, but to me it's working with what I have. And I had something imperfect, and I was trying to make it a little bit closer to perfect. In my original sketches, I had this man looking through a window, and that would have worked out okay, little circular window. I was trying to line things up in circles, kind of keeping that theme of, lining up with the celestial bodies, but, keep those circular things kind of in line. That was one of my ideas for this. But as I was downtown for jury duty, I got to thinking about some of the buildings that have domes on them. And I thought, oh, now that might be something interesting. So I kind of changed tacks a little bit and decided to have this man peering up through a window at the top of a dome. And I really liked that idea. I thought that would be really cool. The problem was that the geometry was going to get tough, and I couldn't just take a picture and copy a picture, because this is really coming from my imagination, and this is going to require more than just finding the right location, which would have taken forever anyway. So that changed, but I still wanted to do a watercolor, and so I used my masking fluid to go over some of the areas I wanted to protect that I had already used some gouache on, some areas I hadn't worked on at all. And I cracked out my watercolors because I really wanted a nice blue. I wanted this to be mainly a blue and a little bit of warm color for the parts that I really wanted to accentuate. And I also figured during an eclipse, things tend to get kind of dark, and I thought that would kind of set the mood overall, kind of approaching what I was thinking of originally with this drawing. I really liked the tone of blue that I got here, and honestly, as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, well, finally I'm on the right track. I'm getting to the watercolor part and it's going well, and I was feeling pretty good about the time I had left, which is good, because the eclipse is coming right up in a day or two. I had a little bit of texture to the background here. I thought maybe just having it just plain might distract a little bit, but overall I was getting pretty happy. I had, evening out some of the colors and making sure that the dark parts were dark, and, I was to the point like, okay, well, let's start working on this guy. And so let's remove the old masking fluid, which, is a great little tool. I love using it because it lets you do nice washes around it, and it can be a satisfying thing taking this stuff off. I rarely have problems with masking fluid, but this time was a little bit different. It was taking up my old paint, and as I went, it was taking up paper and the ink and all sorts of things, and smudging. Man, the camera's not on me at this point, but I'm probably swearing because I'm just at the point like, what is, oh my God, what's going on? And all I can say is the paper is just probably just bad quality. I may have contributed to it a little bit by all the erasing I did, but I didn't erase in this area, so I really don't think so. But at any rate, I felt like I was failing again. Do you ever feel like this? Oh man, it just seems like everything you can do just to finish the project. And I had to go for a drive because I was so not happy, and I can't hold off the Eclipse. I just can't do it. And I'd already been told like a day or two prior that the sunglasses that I bought may not be safe, so I had to order some other ones. Oh man. And it came in the most efficient packaging ever. Yep. Won't be needing these anymore. So dig on in there and get these new solar glasses. And these are just about as stylish as the other ones. They're not unlike those 3D glasses you used to get at the movie theater, although maybe not quite that cool. But they do seem to work, and I guess I'll be ready for the Eclipse. But will the painting be done? Will it be ready for the Eclipse? I really had to do a hard reset, and you know, I took a nap and I just came back at it and said, you know what? I'm just going to make it work. I'm just going to make it work. And, you know, sometimes it's a tough, you know, feeling to have when, you know, you think things are going well and then all of a sudden they're not. I don't know anybody who enjoys doing things over, you know, especially if it was done right the first time. But you know, in the name of art, I guess we'll just continue on and just redo the parts we need to redo. So the first thing, of course, is to get that ink back in there, and you know that I was nervous doing this because last time I had so many problems with ink smudging and all sorts of stuff, and now the paper's all ripped up, so I wasn't sure how that was going to go. I was a little bit fortunate. It looked like the paper overall was holding up. It wasn't making the ink do weird things, and I tried to control the pen a little bit more so that I wouldn't regret putting ink on it, and overall, you know, it worked out okay. Then of course I had to redo some other parts that were in gouache. So tried to match the colors I had before, tried to fill in these areas. I'm telling you, this was not fun. But got through it, and overall, I think that I got the base painting back to where it was before it was damaged by the masking fluid, but I was not happy about it. But after all of that correcting in ink and gouache, I was ready to get back at the watercolors and get working on the main subject. So there are a couple things composition-wise maybe I'll talk about. One is the choice to go with blue on his shirt, and this was because this is not an important part of the overall composition, and I kind of wanted it to more or less blend in, or at least not be a distraction, and kind of become part of the background. And since the background was already kind of this midnight or Prussian blue, I figured I'd do about the same thing with his shirt. I did notice as I was putting blue down that the ripped up paper wasn't accepting the watercolor as nicely as it had before. It was, before it was pretty even, and now it just looks like it's kind of jumbled up a little bit, getting caught in some of the tooth of the paper after all the damage that had been done to it. In the overall composition of this piece, I wanted to draw attention through this line that goes from this old gentleman's eyeball through maybe a marble, and that kind of goes up into this dome and out into the sky where you see the eclipse, or you will see the eclipse later. The columns also act as leading lines that visually bring your eye up from this main subject here up to the oculus at the top of the dome. Everything just kind of works along that line, going from this guy's eye to the eclipse. And, all these things were very intentional. That's, I had a lot of time to plan this one out, so I did a lot of work on trying to set this up in a visually pleasing way, or effective way. And also leading the viewer's eye up to the eclipse in the center of the oculus are these rings that go around. It almost ends up being like a bullseye type thing. Again, this is all pretty intentional, just trying to draw focus up to that eclipse and then back down to the eye, and along that line. I'm trying to get the viewer to have to look around a little bit and not just get the whole composition in one look. Another thing I did to kind of tie things along this line is add this yellow to kind of suggest a glowing that was going to go between maybe the eclipse and this man's eye. I don't know if that makes sense in a scientific sense, since an eclipse would be pretty dark, but I think that it works out compositionally, and it kind of draws the eye back and forth. And for the last bit here, I am putting on some sizing, and I am going to use this for some gold leaf. Now, this is the very first time I've ever used this stuff, and I just came up with the idea as I was using the gouache to, correct some of the mistakes I had in the past. And I thought, well, I could cover this up with some gold leaf or some metal leaf, and I thought it might also add something to, these rings and the majesty of this eclipse. So I thought it was appropriate to use, and yeah, it was the first time I'd used this, but I think it ended up looking pretty good, and I like the idea of it and the look of it, and I'm sure I'll be using it in the future because I have a kit now. I'm not going to let it go to waste. I didn't want all these little flecks here to go to waste too. I had seen that this was going to be a thing that was going to happen with gilding or gold leafing, and so I put all that to a jar and then using the vacuum cleaner to get the rest of it. So, can I finish the race? Can I make it before the eclipse? Can I? Yes! Oh, just barely there. Oh my gosh. And I've been fighting with a dog barking in my next door neighbor's yard to get this voiceover done too, so, just one thing after another. I really hope you enjoy this piece. Let me know. I think overall I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out, despite the circuitous way of getting there. Yeah, it was kind of fun, and I learned a number of things. whether or not you are on the path to totality, I wish everybody a happy Eclipse Day, April 8th, 2024. Thanks for stopping by, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed things, and hope to have another video for you real soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.